Welcome to our webinar on the 411 on PCI DSS 401. Today we'll cover PCI DSS 4.0 in general, why it was introduced and what you need to know. We will discuss updates in the recent PCI DSS 401 from just a few weeks ago. And then we will take a deep dive into the browser script requirements, how they change in 401 and what they mean in general, and how best to prepare to meet those requirements. I'm very excited I'm Jeff Zitomer. I lead product management for our client-side defense products at Human Security. And I'm very excited to have with me here Jeremy King from the PCI Council. Jeremy.
Hi, Jeff. Yes, delighted to be here. My name is Jeremy King. I'm the Regional VP Europe, Middle East and Africa for the PCI Security Standards Council, and looking forward to the session today. So I'm going to start off our little session. When we make changes, and certainly this is the first time we've made big changes to the PCI DSS in a number of years, the best place to start to find out what's been going on are the summary of changes documents. So there are two available on our website. There is the one which covers the migration from 3.2.1 to version 4. And there is another one that's just been released, which covers the migration from 4.0 to 4.0.1. So if you want to know what's changed, why it's changed, how it's changed, what is the information around them, start by downloading these two documents. They are a really good resource for you when you're looking to move towards using these new versions of the standard. Next slide, please, Jeff. So none of this top 10 Maloney. We are going full spinal tap. Let's go for the top 11. And really, there's something like 53, I think, or more, 60 requirements that are new within version 4.0 of the DSS. But I thought I'd pick out our top 11 just to go through them and give you some idea of what's changed and why we've changed it. And you'll get a common theme as I'm going through these. So requirement number 332, encryption of sensitive authentication data is required if stored before authorization is complete. So this is a change. It used to be that only after authentication was complete was it needed to be encrypted. But unfortunately, this is how the criminals are attacking us. They're seeing this opportunity. And so we've had to make a change to make this more secure for everybody. And like I said, this is the trend you're going to see going through these. 541, additional process of detecting and protecting personnel from phishing attacks. We all know phishing attacks have gone through the roof, especially since the COVID pandemic. And so really now we're expecting organizations to improve the training and improve the protection of their staff from this type of attack. Especially with AI coming on board, the new phishing attacks are very, very good, high quality. So we really all need to be on our most observant when we're trying to prevent that. 643 is a new one, and this is another area where we're trying to react to how criminals have been finding ways into organizations. And 643 requires management of all payment page scripts, which are loaded and executed in the consumer's browser. And again, customer's browser. We're going to go through that a little bit more detail. Jeff's going to come back into that. Obviously, password. We knew that the password length in PCI DSS was out of sync. We've updated it to 12 characters. A lot of you are going to say, but that's still not enough. And we do know, I mean, it is the minimum level. You can certainly go much higher, but we also know that in some older systems, that's as high as you can go. So we've tried to reflect on what's the best worst case that people can cope with. If you want to go more, if you want to do away with passwords altogether, go for it. 842 is another change. We've expanded our multi-factor authentication, and this is now implemented for all access into the CDE. Again, trying to prevent the criminals from being able to gain access and then move around inside your organizations. 11312, internal vulnerability scans must be performed by authenticated scanning. Again, we're trying to improve this. You'll see other changes around the ASV scans as well, so do look at that carefully. Multi-tenant service providers only on the 1147. Support is required for customers' external penetration testing. Again, we're trying to prevent that access, trying to prevent criminals finding that easy way in. And again, there's lots of different ways they've been succeeding, and we're trying to close as many of these down with these new requirements and with the improved security that we're expecting everyone to be implementing as we go through PCI DSS version 4 and 4.0. 1161 detect changes of unauthorized modification to security impacting headers and script contents. Again, another reference to the scripts there. We know the JavaScripts are a way the criminals like to try and find access into us. Another one that's been around for a long time but is now finally into the requirements, and that is we have to document and conform PCI DSS scope every 6 months and after any significant change. We always used to many assessors used to refer to this as requirement 0. It now has its proper requirement, and it's something we expect people to do, because you should know what is your scope. If you don't know what you're trying to protect, how can you protect it? And again, then the in-scope environment is validated every 12 months with any significant changes in the environment being noted and confirmed. So really, that's a short summary of what are the changes in DSS version 4. Let's go on to the next slide, please, Jeff. So one of the key areas we're seeing, again, this is having been involved with PCI for a long time, we're seeing more and more organizations utilizing the services of service providers. Many merchants say to me, Jeremy, we're excellent at selling, we're not good at security, can we use third parties? And it's like, yes, you can. But you need to understand that relationship. You need to understand what the service provider is going to be giving or providing you, who's responsible for what. What is a third-party provider responsible for, and what are you? You will still have responsibilities. You never get rid of them all. There will be things to do to comply with PCI DSS version 4 or 4.0.1, but if you're using a third party, that can reduce that. You've also got to understand that your relationship as a merchant is still with your acquiring bank. They're the people who control, who require you to be validated against PCI DSS. Their assessors will come in and assess you. And they, the acquirer, need not have or may not have or probably don't have a relationship with your third party. So again, making sure all of this, who's responsible for what, is correctly identified can stop you having problems with your QSA and with your acquiring bank. Next slide, please, Jeff. Lots of help and supporting information being updated constantly on the website. So please do visit our website at PCIsecuritystandards.org. Look in the document library, but there's going to be a lot of changes coming. You can see them on the list there. So a few of them, we're updating our MFI guidance. We're updating we've introduced targeted risk analysis guidance because that's a new area for you to be able to use. We're updating the SAQs. We're actually updating at the moment the ROC reporting template because, again, we've seen that's come through and we've seen it's actually grown a little larger than we wanted. So we're trying to simplify that. So your feedback through all of these processes really helps make this difference. So again, keep your eye on our website for a lot of these changes coming through. Do read them. They are really helpful for helping you make the change in the migration toward version 4 and 4.0.1. Next slide, please, Jeff. So why the move to 4.0.1 when we've just released version 4, it seems 2 minutes ago? Well, whenever we do this, in spite of our best efforts, there's always some errors. There's always some typos. There's always some grammar O's. And sometimes there are just some O's. And we try and get all of those together. And you out there, our community, are brilliant. You highlight these to us. And you do it very kindly and respectfully. Usually it's like, hey, guys, didn't you realize you spelt that wrong again? But so we update those, we correct them. But also sometimes, and this is the sort of OOs, when we look at what really made sense to us when we were writing it and what really made sense to everyone, in reality of when it's released, it's like, that's not quite as clear as we wanted it. And so we did a minor update just to put in a lot more guidance, update some of the best practices and support information, really to make it clear. We wanted to make it really clear so everyone knows what it is you've got to do, and the assessors testers know what they're looking for. We've also made some minor adjustments to a couple of the requirements just to try and make it again clearer as to what we're trying to do. So we needed to do it. We've done it. We've brought it out with 4.0.1, and we hope it's not going to cause you too many challenges as you move across. Next slide, please, Jeff. So as you look at some of those changes, requirement 3, you can see there we've clarified some notes for issues. We've added objective for key cryptographic hashing. Requirement 6, this is one of the subtle changes. We had a lot of feedback that said when we were talking about 30-day patches, we'd originally in 3.2.1 always had it as critical, and with 4 we went to critical and high, and everyone went, whoa, no, we can't do critical and high in 30 days. So now we've gone, okay, critical only for 30 days, but critical and high, you still got to do it because there's still important things to do. So that was feedback we received. We've made a change to make it better. We've listened to you, our community. Requirement 8 around notes on multi-factor authentication. Requirement 11 added applicability notes. Try to make it easier to read. Try to expand and clarify what we're talking about. And requirement 12 updated notes on customer and third-party service provider relationships. So you can see lots of notes being added, lots of guidance, and a couple of subtle changes where the feedback from our community was this isn't quite right for us, and we've listened and we've tried to make those changes. Next slide, please, Jeff. So what does this mean for the timeline? Well, you can see it on the screen here. 3.2.1 retired at March, and version 4 became the standard you had to use. As you can see, 4.0.1 was released in June, and now we're back to that situation where we're actually running with 2 standards. So it's up to you. You can either use version 4 or you can use version 4.0.1. Now, in both of those versions, we did not change or amend anything to do with the future dated requirements that first appeared in version 4. They're still there, and they're still going to become effective on the 31st of March 2025. So anything in the standard, either version 4 or 4.0.1 that says this is a future dated requirement until March the 31st, it means if you're assessed now, you can say that is not required until then, or this is not applicable. You can, if you want to be validated against it, you can. But if you want to say, no, we're not ready, we haven't got everything we need in place yet, it doesn't apply. So you can, and the QSAs know this and they can move on. Next slide, please, Jeff. So what's going to happen then with version 4.0? Well, we're going to run it because one of the things we've always done is we don't like giving people shocks and surprises. We don't want to suddenly have to change things on the fly. It's not like the UK election where the next day the new government is in. This is time for you to read and understand. So version 4 will stay with us until the end of December 2024 when it will be retired, and then we'll move totally over to version 4.0.1. But if you want to go for 4.0.1 because you like what has happened there and you think it's a better version for you, fine, go ahead with it. You can do that now. Well, you might have to wait a couple of weeks just while we're doing updating the ROC reporting template. So within a couple of weeks, once everything's settled there and all the supporting documents are available, you will be able to use 4.0.1. So do look at it, do read it carefully, do work with your QSA, and gradually move yourselves across to these new versions. Next slide, Jeff. And I think this is back to you, sir.
Yeah, this is back to me. So having finished the overview of 4.0 and 4.01, let's take a walk on the client side, talk a little bit about the new browser script requirements, 643 and 1161, starting with this slide of why they were introduced. So looking on the left side of the slide from around 2017, 2018, the world started becoming familiar to started hearing about these attacks that were probably happening for a few years before, and then they've consistently happened all the way through the present, and highlighted again and pretty consistently on the 2024 Data Breach Investigation Report. Now, what's the story with browser scripts, right? So when you visit a website, your site isn't just loaded statically off of the website that you go to. It is instead it includes text, it includes images, it includes formatting files, and it includes a lot of JavaScript. That's what makes the experience rich. It's what makes any kind of website, highly interactive, and highly integrated to the rest of the world. So all the Facebook like button and the payment service provider that you use for checkout, and a lot of scripts used for advertising and marketing and various analytics. All of those are running on every one of your end consumers' browsers. And so those scripts there, they are very plentiful. They are business critical. You can't run an online business without them. And kind of the really hard part is they bypass all your change management and security controls, meaning that if you have this very nice process where every kind of code change is secure as you should have for your applications, and especially obviously ones that deal with payments, when it comes to these browser scripts, your end user ends up fetching those scripts directly from all kinds of third parties, and those third parties rely on their own third parties, fourth parties to you. And there's that whole tree or that whole script supply chain that gets loaded into your end user's browser. It is part of your application, but you have absolutely no control over it. And the problem is that within the default security mode of any browser, scripts that run within kind of have access to anything and can kind of do anything. And that's what's behind or been driving these attacks over the years. With that, so just scratching the surface a little bit into 643 and 1161, and I mean you should really go to the original document and read the whole like 2 slides that for each of these requirements. But here, really dumbing them down to these 4 bullets that I like to read them a little bit out of order. So first thing is know what you have. Maintain an inventory and have a written justification to why every script is there on your inventory running on your website, whether it's a first-party script that you used or a third or fourth parties. Why do they need to be on a payment page? They need to be justified. The idea here is remove them, clean it up, reduce that attack surface, right? And then for every script that is there, the script needs to be authorized, and you need to assure the script's integrity, as in, is what you authorize to happen, is that what is actually happening, or has someone gotten in the way, has some behavior gotten in that shouldn't be there? And the script may have turned malicious intentionally or accidentally. Moving on to 1161, this one is more about monitoring changes to your security controls, and part of it is an overlap with the assure script's integrity, depending on how you read these requirements. But the basic idea is that you need to look at your payment pages as received by the consumer browser, and have alerts on any changes that are to HTTP headers and the script contents of payment pages. And with HTTP headers, we'll talk about this in a little bit. 401 actually added this very helpful wording here around security impacting HTTP headers, because otherwise there's kind of an infinite number of potential headers. So this narrows it down to, okay, you're using security headers potentially as part of your security posture for your payment page. Make sure that your developer hasn't turned it off because he couldn't get something to work, and then she forgot to turn it back on. And so this is where you can catch that out of band, or of course, if anybody malicious was able to change those headers, same idea. So yeah, a little bit on changes that came in 401 that were related to these 2 requirements. So first off, there were very important clarifications to the applicability. So previously, these were a little more hidden within the SAC-A, but now they are now they're included in the main document. As in, if you use a third-party payment service provider, you still need to own and control the scripts on your payment page. By the way, that payment provider within the iframe, assuming you're deploying via an iframe, they own the scripts within the iframe. You just own the ones that are outside of the iframe. And the requirement clarified that in a big way. Then 643 specifically, one of the things that I think the council very wisely identified is that for client side, unlike server side, a lot of the changes are outside of your control, and a lot of times it's impractical to pre-authorize every change before it happens, or every new script before it happens. And so it recognizes that if a change did happen and you didn't necessarily have a chance to authorize it before, then you need to authorize it as soon as possible. Another interesting one is there's basically the definition of what it means for a script to be necessary on a payment page. There was a very tight definition of what that was that kind of didn't recognize the payment pages needed to have a lot of scripts on them that are necessary maybe to run the business or to technically deliver the site, but weren't necessarily crucial to actually completing a payment. And so basically by removing that, loosening up that that definition a little, I think it gives businesses the flexibility that they need to kind of balance that security and business need. And then on 11.6.1, I alluded to this a little bit. So before it said you need to look at changes to HTTP headers and contents of payment pages. So and then it was kind of left to everyone to decide, okay, which headers, how do I have to do all of them? There are a lot of them. There are a lot of custom headers. So it's very helpful that the idea here is security impacting headers, because the idea is to see, okay, is anybody tampering with my security posture? That's the purpose there of 11.6.1 primarily. And so it's security impacting headers. And then on contents of payment pages, the ones that really matter are, of course, the scripts. They're the ones who could take part in your defense or could be the ones attacking you. So yeah, typical pushback that we've heard and has now been clarified in 401 is, right, if I use a third-party payment service provider, e.g. via iframe, do I need to do this? So 401 clarified that very well. As far as the why, I think SAQ AR2 from last year, and as we've heard, an update to it is forthcoming. Basically explains why those are important, right? Because even if you use a third-party payment service provider, just that page that embeds there that provides the link to it, it also impacts how account data is transmitted and the security of it, and the various attacks that can be done to steal cardholder data, even if you're doing everything right with that iframe. How to comply? So I guess I'll preface by saying no tool is going to get you compliant, right? It's a combination of having people, process, and tools, and what PCI actually requires is that you have a method to accomplish all of this, and that method would involve these people, process, and tools. But it's going to be very hard to do it without a tool. So tools that are available are first just free ones that are open standard, things like content security policy, sub-resource integrity. They are quote unquote free, as in you communicate something to the browser and the browser knows how to act based upon it. They have a few pros, but they also have a lot of cons as well. It's very difficult to actually accomplish security with them. Sometimes they can, they're blunt and brittle. They can break your site actually, or just not give you enough fine control. And they won't give you all the other aspects that you are required for. So they are security controls and very valuable security controls, but they don't give you things like inventory management and necessarily the ongoing monitoring. So for example, content security policy is a header. You need to somehow monitor that header did not change. It itself will not do that. Next is synthetic scanners. So set up a machine that looks a lot like a browser, and it can play over a user going and clicking, and basically a bot hitting the site and looking at script behaviors. Can't go into all the details here, but primarily the challenges with it, with this approach, are that it is actually very hard to do this at scale for a lot of sites, because every time the site changes, that recording that you created will now break. And so you need to go back in and stand it up again. And so either you get this very cheaply, there are even open source options, but you need a team that's constantly standing it back up every time you change your site, or you pay somebody else to have that team and constantly set it up again. Either way, it ends up being a relatively expensive approach. And then from a security perspective, they're just really, really easy to fool, because human security, we didn't give the overview of the site of the company, but what we do primarily is detect human versus bot. And in this case, it's actually a really easy case to know that, a really easy example for a script to know that most likely I'm being hit now by a bot, so I will just behave nicely and maybe not load that other malicious script, or just not take those malicious behaviors that I know I can take. Next, reverse proxies. So basic idea is have some proxy sitting in between and have all the scripts run through them, and they can kind of filter through whatever ones have changed or not. Sounds attractive on the surface, can very easily break your site, has performance implications, and really all you need to know is kind of at the bottom here. Even CDNs and WAFs who already filter all your traffic, the ones who've built and deployed a solution to address JavaScript security did not go with this approach. It's very, very organic to them. Your traffic is already going through them, and just routing some of the third or fourth parties through them would not be extra work. They've experimented with that in the past and found that it is very brittle and has a lot of challenges. And so they actually went with this approach, the real user monitoring and defense, which we believe is the best approach, and coincidentally is the one we took. The key idea there is that you have yet another JavaScript. That's the con. So one more JavaScript when you're trying to reduce the number of JavaScripts. The irony does not escape us. And that JavaScript runs on all your end user browsers and can collect everything that you need to know from there. So it can send you back the whole inventory, or send it back to the backend, and then you get a nice UI, obviously, that shares that inventory. It should be easier to set up and maintain. I guess it depends on whose you buy. But then kind of once the script is on there, it's on there. It just works. You don't need to do anything to kind of stand it back up again, or constantly like communicate back to the vendor or anything like that. It can do precision mitigation, again, depending on which of these solutions you buy, meaning unlike content security policy or CSP, it's not like I allow or block an entire domain. I can pick and choose which specific things within a domain I can block. And so this gives you the great advantage of your CMO really, really needs your script, and your CISO really, really hates this script because it introduces all this risk. You are able to keep it there for its business value, but still control its risky downside. With that, let's move on a little bit. How to select a tool. So I'm not going to go into all of these, but these are some things to think about. So one is, as much as possible, you want it to be a one-stop shop for at least these two requirements. So there are some out there that talk a lot about scripts, but you'll notice they say nothing or almost nothing about headers. So you will still be stuck with that 11.6.1 requirement about headers and monitoring their changes in, or alerting to changes in the consumer's browser. Next, you'll need to make sure that it stores all the activities that you need, so that on the fly you can generate the audit report and show all the evidence, because it's just always there, because it's all recorded within the tool as you go through what PCI expects you to do. And then, of course, everything PCI expects you to do, I mean, it is a little onerous. There is work involved there, right? So you're going to want this tool to have a built-in workflow with integrations to all of your other tools that you use, things like Jira, Slack, your SIEM tools, however it is that you typically manage these things in your org. You're going to want this tool to fit seamlessly inside. You're going to want it to have various automations, for example, to authorize vendors that you have an ROC from, and they are very trustworthy. So, okay, record that all the changes happen, but I don't actually want to review every change and authorize it necessarily. This one, again, get your QSA to sign off on whichever approach you choose here. And yeah, collaboration I talked about. And others, total cost of ownership, the basic stuff that vendors always get you across whichever, whatever it is, they'll charge you extra for various bells and whistles that were in the presentation. They will charge you extra for services. So make sure that you kind of understand the complete cost. And of course, if you want to take the DIY approach with an open source scanner and CSP and SRI, it is doable. But we do have a few very large and with very capable engineering and security teams who went down that rabbit hole for a few weeks trying to do this themselves, and concluded that it would just be too expensive and not worth it. So not that it's not doable, but it'll end up costing them a lot in the long run to have to maintain all that and just finish and build it and have everything in place, and then make the audit itself easy. With that, the last one is balance security with business needs. So talking a little bit about the previous point, So, okay, you need to authorize a script or not authorize a script. Does the tool actually give you the information that you need about what the script is doing risky or not? So, okay, the script has changed, or there's a new script. Okay, good change, bad change. Like, how do you even know, So make sure that you're actually getting that kind of visibility. Make sure you have the ability to authorize the script, but then at the same time protect the data, and it's not like a binary, right? Either the script runs with all its potential downside, or you're protecting the data and you're kind of shutting down, cutting off the oxygen to the business. And the ability to be able to neutralize a script or some of the downside of a script until it's fully removed is also important. So if there is a script that isn't authorized to be there, you will want to remove it there as soon as possible via your developers, your vendors, etc. But in the meantime, because that takes some time, it's great if the tool is able to quarantine that script and prevent it from causing any harm. With that, so this is the first actual quote unquote, or really the only quote unquote marketing slide in here. We've built a tool to basically deliver all of that. Like, we understand that there is a lot of effort involved, and we understand that there's real security risk, and we understand that there is real business value that these scripts provide. And we've built the one tool to encompass all of it and give you the best balance. So it's the simplest to streamline that whole process of protecting your payment page, your payment pages, right? Protecting them from scripts and giving you, the script and header management. It has a lot of security bells and whistles because we've been doing this security-wise before it was added to PCI. So you have all those security bells and whistles that aren't necessarily in the PCI standard. And of course, it can apply to your other pages as well, because who wouldn't want to protect their login credentials also, now that you know how scripts wreak havoc on card data? Very same technique. Scripts can steal login credentials, usernames, passwords, and obviously you wouldn't want that. So there's a lot of security that we can provide beyond that. And the last one, and I can't help but talk about this a lot, right? It's security compliance. We don't want to be the naysayers all the time, taking away the business's toys, taking away their ability to make money. We want to enable them to the best way possible, safely and securely, right? And that's, again, a key tenet within our product. With that, why don't we move on to questions? So looking.
Are you going to read the questions then, Jeff? And between us, we can decide how we're going to answer them.
Yeah, I guess that works. Okay, so if all of your payments are processed by external service providers, what are your responsibilities with regards to PCI DSS?
That's a really good question. So thank you very much for whoever sent that one in. You are, as the merchant, you are responsible for your PCI DSS compliance. You can utilize, as I said, third parties to try and help with that. And many of the third parties are going to want, if they're good third parties, they're going to simplify your PCI DSS compliance significantly. But as you look at this area around the scripts and around the headers and things like that, you have really got to make sure you have this conversation with your third party as to who's responsible for what. And as Jeff said, even then, you have still got responsibilities yourself. So, gone big. So you really need to ensure you understand what is being provided by your third party, what is still your responsibility, and make sure everything is in place for when you have your assessment, because your acquirer is going to be the one looking for that compliance. And certainly I've seen an example where, and this was on the ASV scanning, the third party failed an ASV scan and the merchant had nothing to do with it. And the QSA of the merchant was like, but you haven't got a passing ASV scan, I'm going to fail you. So understand the implications of this relationship. It will impact on your compliance, and that is the key. You need to make sure you have those conversations up front. You know who's taking which responsibility, and then if you still on those areas you still need to be responsible for, you have all of the tools, all of the procedures in place to enable you to show to your QSA, yes, we are also compliant. A third party does not remove you from compliance. I know there are third parties out there saying this. They are wrong. You have responsibilities. So make sure you understand those and fix them. Sorry, that was a bit strong, because I just want everyone to really understand you always have responsibilities. Very few, you can reduce it really down. You know, a good third party will take it right down to a low level, but you still have some.
Yeah, like from our perspective, obviously, Jeremy, you've been on this for years with the council, trying to clarify this. I'll say what we see, talking even to our existing customers who already pay for the product, and I tell them, hey, by the way, we've rolled out this PCI module as well to make that easy for you, and it's free, included in the product you already bought. And they say, no, it's okay. We have an iframe. We use a third-party payment service provider, so we don't actually need that. And then in the past, I used to show them the SAQ. Now I can show the SAC. Now I can show them the 401, and I think that helps and goes a long way. Occasionally, we run into customers of some of our other products who haven't even done a SAC to date. They use an iframe, and they've never even done a SAC for years. Been in business without it. And basically, I tell them, okay, you've been flying under the radar. It's not my job to sell you like whatever 28 requirements probably of SEC. I'm trying to sell you too, but yeah, just my advice is talk to a QSA and understand your exposure here and how to cover that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so yeah, excellent question, and I'm sure it'll keep coming up because. Yeah, I think there's a lot of perceptions out there.
Oh yes.
There's a request here to share a link to the documentation. So I think I don't have it at my fingertips, so I'd share it here in the comment thread, but we can follow up if this is Bobby. If you provided your email, then we can follow up and send that and share that with you, or maybe even include it with everyone in our follow up to everyone. Oh, wait a minute. I see. Yeah, Alexa's already shared it. Great. Okay, another question from Greg. So speaking to integrity, does that mean that we need to utilize the integrity attribute on all scripts?
We'll let you take that one, Jeff.
Yeah, I'm not sure what you mean by integrity attribute. If you mean sub-resource integrity or SRI. It's not mandated to use SRI. I think it's given in the standard as an example. It's definitely not mandated. And we're glad that it's not, because it's sort of going back to my slide on the various options that you have. So content security policy and sub-resource integrity, or SRI, that was the other one. So SRI basically says in your HTML, where you have that tag that tells the browser, hey, go fetch the script, you have in there a signature, a cryptographic signature of that script. And so the browser, when it actually gets the script, it checks, does the signature match does the signature provided in the HTML match the signature that we got for the script? There are a few challenges with that approach. First and foremost, that all the various third parties and fourth parties that you use, for third parties that you use, are not gonna like you wrapping an SRI script around them. Even your first parties is going to be very difficult with all your different developers to get them and to get the whole process with that, because effectively once you wrap SRI around anything, you've sort of turned it from a modern SaaS application into basically an on-prem software piece that it's very difficult to change and update. The next thing to know is that if anything does change and update, then it literally breaks. That's what the browser does. It just doesn't load the script. And so if this happens to be, you've wrapped it around your PayPal script or your TokenX XOPay script or anything like that, and then they change, then basically, right, your site has one job, and that's to sell something and get paid for it. And you aren't going to be able to get paid for it because your checkout page will be broken by SRI. So just practicality-wise, it isn't quite there. Also, SRI won't cover any fourth-party scripts or any scripts later in the supply chain. So it's like, okay, I have this SRI around the tag, but then that script is loaded and it loads other scripts. Those aren't protected by SRI. So it can't even achieve the thing that you're trying to achieve with it here as far as integrity, because you are responsible for the integrity of also third and fourth-party scripts. So we get this question a lot. There's definitely no mandate to use any kind of hashing and actually check has any character in the text changed. And at least what we provide, and we know a lot of customers chose us because of this, is we check the behavioral integrity of the scripts. So basically, we don't worry you with any innocuous changes to it, but only changes that affect the security potentially or could be used, could in some way in an attack. We will alert you to any change that includes one of those. So this script that you have authorized before, now we see a new behavior on it that is that could potentially be malicious, and then you review it and we provide you all the context that you need, and kind of reauthorize it. Or same thing, first time you ever discover a script and you're trying to decide, okay, do I authorize this script or not? You have a list of all of the potentially malicious behavior that's taking, and a lot more depth on a whole bunch of other behaviors in case you want to dig deeper. You can review those and then decide whether you want to authorize it, and or if this has integrity versus what you intended to authorize.
Yeah, and I think one thing you've kind of highlighted really well there, Jeff, is this is a complicated topic, but it's one, as Jeff said in his slides, we had to implement because some of the biggest breaches that we've seen in the last few years have come through this. So this is one where, you know, we future dated it specifically because we knew it was complex. We knew that for a lot of organizations, this is going to mean that you as an organization are going to have to put in some effort. You may have to get sign off for some new tools and capabilities to be able to work in this way. And so, you know, when we do release and do future date, it's there for a reason, because we're like, actually, we can see that for many organizations to get themselves ready, it's going to take a year to do this. So if you're looking at this now and you're listening to this thinking, gosh, we haven't started on this journey yet, absolutely, this is what you need to be doing now. This should be front and center. These are things that if you're going to do it internally, you need to get a team together who can work and understand what's required. If you want to buy the tools, and there are some, you know, I'm PCI, so I will say there are other organizations as well as Human who can use. Human have got a very nice solution, but there are, you know, if you want to look at that, do. But you've got to take that action now. You can't just sit back and think, I'll wait until next year. Next year's too late. You need to start doing it now. You need to be talking to your QSA. You need to be talking to the likes of Human to say, come and show us your tool. Come and see how it's going to work for us. Will it, you know, how is it going to be embedded? What's it going to give us? And this is important because, like I say, this is the big attacks. These are the real hurtful attacks that criminals are doing. We, as the council, had to react. We brought this out. We released version 4 in 2022. It's now 2 years later. You've got less than a year left, but please, time for thinking is done. Time for action is now. Do start working on this.
Awesome. Yeah. Thanks for the assist there. And I'd say, yeah, with the few months left, right? So again, the way our tool can help most is, right, most organizations, when we talk to first, they don't even know what scripts are running there on their client side at all, and on their payment page at all, right? And so we're the easy button from that perspective of take our JavaScript tag, and almost the same way all these other tags got there without your knowledge, put this one on there and it'll give you knowledge into how all these other scripts got on there. And out of the box, right, kind of sit back and you will see your inventory auto-populate and then auto-maintain itself throughout kind of your day-to-day operations after that, as you kind of secure everything, achieve compliance, maintain compliance, stay secure. Everything there is sort of auto-managed, auto-discovered. You don't need to tell it in advance about any change. It will tell you that it has seen something, and then it's up to you to determine was that expected or not. So really makes it easy. But again, I can't stress enough, even just deploying our tool, there's only so much a tool can do. You still need to bring together the various stakeholders. You need to put together policies and processes of how you're going to decide what to authorize, who are people that need to look at things and have the right to sign off on it. You need to get everybody involved, right? You'll need the marketing team that needs to say, okay, why does this script need to be on a payment page? You'll need their help with that justification, for example. And then any other change, hey, did you all intend to put this vendor on here that we've never seen before, but human security is telling us that this is a marketing analytics vendor, so it probably came from you. Yeah, get them involved in that. Get obviously the security team to review things, the developers to review in many cases their own scripts, and then to make changes to add or remove scripts. Yeah, I think we can. I think we've covered that one. There's always a lot more we could say. So there's a question here: must all checkout pages loading on the client browsers be audited? Do you want to start with that one, Jeremy, or?
Are all loaded? It's like yes, if it's on the payment page. Simple answer, yes.
I wonder.
I mean, it is a strange one. I think it should be authenticated and validated, yes. But if that falls into your overall audit, yes.
Yeah, I guess audited. I don't know, maybe taking the word too literally, right? But there are probably those who literally just fill out a SAC themselves and don't go through an audit. And in that case, it's okay if you do the SAC properly and you're actually maintaining the controls properly. Then again, I believe that's okay to have a self-signed SAC if you're that right level of PCI compliance, right?
Yep. Yes.
Oh yeah, let me scan through here. Okay, there's a question on the 6-month review of PCI DSS scope. Do you have any templates of what type of documentation one needs to keep?
I don't know the answer to that question. I will take that one away and find the answer and feed it back in. Sorry, that one stumped me. Because I know we've got a lot of new documentation coming through, and I need to just double check whether there is something there or not. So leave that one with me, and I'll get the answer back through our friends here at Human.
Yeah, we will send an email follow-up to everyone who signed up and said it's okay to contact them, I guess, or maybe an email follow-up. It's okay with everyone just to send you the link to the link to this and yeah, things like the requests on here. Another one that's beyond JavaScript. Are web vulnerability scans required via an ASV as opposed to operating system, I guess, OS level scans? Not many web vulnerability scanning ASVs.
Unfortunately, yes, you do need to utilize an ASV. We have a full list of ASVs available on our website. You look at approved vendors or approved suppliers. I can't remember the exact list. I'll send the link again. And there's a list there. You can go and look at all of the approved ASV vendors. And they offer a global service, so you can pick any of those and utilize them.
Awesome. And I guess I'll piggyback on that with a different question that we get, and that is, can't an ASV scan also manage my JavaScripts on the site? Is a question that we get from time to time, and the answer is no. If some of them potentially built or bought a solution that specifically does this, then potentially they'd be happy to sell you that too. But the ASV scan itself, in the guidance in PCI for those scans, and assuming that hasn't changed or isn't changing in 401, then they are not expected to scan anything that requires a user to navigate towards. And it is very rare that somebody can just click www.merchant.com/checkout and get immediately to the page where they can enter their credit card details. And so ASVs just quite simply don't look at your checkout page. They can if they want to, and if they do see anything, they do need to tell you. But otherwise, generally, it's a very different solution and use case. Yeah, and I'd say also, I think scans are a little more periodical, whereas you are expected to be constantly authorizing scripts and assuring their integrity and checking for signs of tamper at least once a week, at least weekly. So there's that too. What else do we have? So what counts as a script? Okay, you mentioned some reduction regarding third-party JavaScripts, but the scripts on the same web application, but not on the same payment page count. Would Terraform count as a script? What about WMI or bash queries from a tool that run against a web server? I feel that it's probably compound. There are a few areas here that I may not know to answer as well, but the first question, that's already that's when you peel out maybe two more layers of the onion on everything we've been talking about, then that question comes up. The short answer is I don't think PCI has officially put out anything. I am planning to give a talk with another QSA at the PCI community meeting in Boston, specifically actually about this topic. But kind of the bad news is, so sort of to answer the question, that at least looking at it from a security and web architecture perspective and how browsers work, then really the whole scripts in the whole application, everything loaded even before getting to that final checkout page, all of them are still there when you get to the checkout page. If it's a single page app that you're constantly JavaScripts are constantly changing what page you're on, versus that you clicked on something and the whole HTML loaded from scratch and the whole DOM was created from scratch and loaded all of the scripts inside it. And then that would be completely separate. And that would be, in our opinion, the best architecture to set up to make this really secure and to have a tight perimeter, similar to how you do network segmentation. So this is web app segmentation in the browser. And in our opinion, that's the right way to quote unquote deploy a solution like this and manage scripts only on your checkout page. And it's best because it just shrinks down your attack surface so much, because all these other scripts that your application absolutely needs, but when the user actually gets to that checkout area they don't need, then you're keeping all those out. Again, with single page apps that load once and then throughout the whole user experience, I get all the way to the checkout page, never reloading the HTML and whatever new scripts, then all of those scripts are previously loaded, they're there, and they can take whatever action they want, just like any other, just as if they're on any other page. And so again, there isn't awareness or understanding around this yet. So I expect in like a year or two, there'll probably be clarifications coming out. And if there's a PCI DSS 4.1, then it would make sense to have that in there too. Having said that, we do have a lot of customers that I guess because nobody's clarified this necessarily, they are telling us, hey, we just want to deploy this on the checkout page. And I will say, if that is what you want to do, like, we can be deployed that way. We will give you the advice that we don't think it's the right thing to do, but ultimately it's right. It's the merchant's job to scope their own website and of course validate that with a QSA. And we're happy to advise, and then on the areas that we are experts on and are allowed to advise on, and otherwise would love to serve you kind of whatever decision you make. Okay, I think we are at time. So I'll resist the temptation of reading more of the questions, but we can send out answers, at least whoever's asked them, very directly. Jeremy, do you want to say any parting words?
I think if we could just go back to the slide page, is that possible?
Yeah, there we go.
And flick onto the next slide. There we go. You mentioned it yourself there, Jeff. You gave yourself a great plug. And for everyone who wants to see Jeff in action with their QSA, do come to Boston in September. It is going to be a fantastic event. Our community meetings I'm talking about here, we have 3 community meetings in the year. And we'd love to see you there, either in Boston or Barcelona or Hanoi. Fabulous locations. But the agenda is going to be amazing. We've got some great topics. We've got lots of experts there. So, if you want more information about what we've talked about, then you'll have the brands, the council, the QSAs, the experts such as Jeff here from Human to be able to go and spend more time talking with. So if you've got a chance, do come to one of these events. We'd love to see you there. And thank you very much for joining us today. I really, really appreciate it. Back to you, Jeff.
Yeah. Thank you very much, everyone, for joining. Thank you very much, Jeremy, for joining us and sharing your expertise and all these updates with 401 fresh off the press. Yeah, if you'd like to talk about this any further, please don't be shy about reaching out to us. Come visit us at the PCI community meetings. Thank you very much for being here. And have a
Thank
good day.
you. Bye-bye.